Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss the legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedoms and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties education and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, the President and General Counsel of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country in the courtrooms of America. Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedoms.
The President and congressional leaders have been talking about reducing the nation's spending and its debt ceiling, but are they really serious? And what's the future of America if we don't get the debt and spending under control? Hi, I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel and dean of Liberty University School of Law. Joining me is Deryl Edwards, who works with the law school at Liberty University in the institutional advancement and also president of Liberty Counsel Action. Deryl, the president and congressional leaders have been talking about this budget now for the last several weeks. Unfortunately, this is not a new situation, and we really don't have any actual fix for this spending problem. What we have is a real spending problem. We don't need to raise new money, because if they raise new money, they'll just continue to spend more money. We obviously don't want the nation to default. No one wants that to happen. But on the other hand, we want the nation to live within its means, just like any other individual and family that has to balance their budget every week and every month. You've got to live within your means, and you can't keep spending more than you take in.
Well, it's just been a practice of pure Keynesian economics as all this administration has done, and we saw it coming even before the election, that we knew that was what was going to happen. Failed policies, failed attempts to try to revive an economy that had sputtered by throwing cash at it. Spending on ridiculous programs have gone nowhere. And then, believe it or not, there are still some of the Democratic Party say we didn't spend enough. And it's just ridiculous on its face. But we've got President Obama, who's kind of a newcomer to this deficit talk party. As you said, he's been playing golf. He's not been paying attention. And all of a sudden, he wants to get in and pretend he's driving the train when he's running hard to catch up to it.
Well, it's been around since his election, and he's actually compounded it, obviously. He obviously inherited a deficit, but he has exponentially expanded that deficit beyond unprecedented limits. And now we have a $14 trillion deficit. That doesn't even count the deficit with regards to the other entitlement programs. Those are off-budget deficits. If you add those, we're up into the $60 trillion level. It's just unfathomable in terms of what we have as a debt obligation. And America will ultimately lose its place in the United States, as well as obviously around the world, in terms of its ability to borrow, in terms of its ability to produce jobs and to be productive. We're going to actually jeopardize our national security by being such a debtor nation as opposed to a lender nation. And we are at unprecedented situations that could really be a catastrophe if we don't get this spending under control. You know, when the Democratic Congress got together and they would not pass a budget earlier in the summer because of the fact that they did not want to defund Planned Parenthood, it really tells you how bankrupt some of the politicians are in Washington, D.C. They're willing to bankrupt America and watch it burn, while at the same time funding abortion in Planned Parenthood and around the world.
Yeah, it's shades of the Roman Empire that we are sowing the seeds of our own destruction week by week for people who refuse to give up their social programs, their own petty politics. One thing I would like to mention is people need to be aware that the reason we're having such a serious discussion right now, and people like to blame the nutty Tea Party Republicans and they're the cause of the problem, we wouldn't be having this discussion at all had not we had the benefits of the election that we just had last year. Because these are the people who are forcing the issue. You wouldn't have Senator Reid offering to give trillions in budget cuts, whether they're phony or not. It wouldn't even come up. These people have pushed them back and caused a more serious discussion than we would have ever had.
That's exactly right. I mean, what we would have is, if we didn't have the election in November of 2010, we wouldn't have these discussions. We'd be spending more money, and we wouldn't have a budget. And in fact, we haven't had a budget since President Obama and the democratically controlled House and Senate in 2009 took office. We have not had a budget. They've not passed a budget in 2009, have not passed a budget in 2010, and there's been no real serious getting to the root cause problem of this situation. You know, I know CNN keeps reporting, well, what do you want to cut? If you cut these different programs, what are you going to cut? They never talk about defunding the National Education Association or the Department of Education, which Jimmy Carter brought in. We don't need a federal Department of Education. We don't need a federal National Endowments of the Arts. We don't need to fund Planned Parenthood. Those are billions of dollars. And there's a lot of other things that you can cut from the budget as well.
The Department of Energy, you could throw in. Nobody can remember a thing they've done since Jimmy Carter also created that one. They've been there. And you can even go look at their website sometime. I encourage people to do that. And you'll find just nothing that ties to anything real. So it's still – that is the problem, as you said. It's created entitlement programs and huge federal bureaucracies that have no purpose at all, and they should just be gutted and cut, and we can move on.
Well, and I think also that some of the Republican leadership need to make it more clear to the American people what's at stake. And I know John Boehner has been leading the task in terms of cutting, capping, and balancing the budget. But on the other hand, about a week ago when he and President Obama were on television and they were talking about the budget, I was disappointed in the way that John Boehner actually articulated the issue because he's not resonating with the American people and telling people exactly what's going on. That makes it clear and understandable. And I think that they need to be very clear, understandable. They need to show how catastrophic this is. And in fact, one of our individuals that we have as part of the Freedom Federation, Mark Nuttall, when he talks about our spending and printing money, you don't want to go to sleep at night because you realize how serious the problem really is. And we really need to get a handle on this because we are running up against a brick wall.
Well, you and I have heard Mark speak, and it's a scary thing because he does mention that wall that's coming about 18 months from now, and he talks about there's not enough liquidity in the world to lend to all the nations who need to borrow money. There's not enough available, and at some point, if we don't do something, and that's real cuts, and in the $4 trillion plus range of having to get to those, we're going to be in big trouble. The other thing related to this is that the president seems to have forgotten about jobs, and he seemed to have forgotten about that we have millions that are unemployed right now. I heard Senator Rubio say the other day that we don't need more taxes raised. We need more taxpayers. And we'd have more taxpayers by putting people to work, by actually encouraging policies that will have businesses who are scared to death right now to add any person to do any investing. Then people will go to work like we did during the Reagan Revolution during the 80s, and the economy would be booming and taxes would be pouring into Washington, D.C.
That's right. I mean, we've got to be able to cut our and one of the reasons why we have our problem with unemployment and the lack of jobs is because of our out-of-control spending and our increased regulation. Businesses are so regulated. I mean, for example, if you go to any shipping area in the country, do you ever see a ship that's registered in the United States? No, you never do. Why? Well, because if they register in the United States, they can't survive, so they're always registered to some foreign country. All the cruise ships down in Florida and all the cruise ships anywhere, they're all registered to some foreign country. Companies, large national, international companies are putting their headquarters overseas. They're shipping their jobs overseas because the regulation here is so burdensome they can't survive. So we need to cut down some of that regulation. Charlie Reese, who just recently wrote his last article for the Orlando Sentinel, talked about all the different taxes, and it was just a list of taxes. And he said 100 years ago, none of those taxes were actually in existence. And America was the most productive and prosperous country in the world at that time. But we've added all the taxes, we've added all the regulations, and that takes away jobs, and it ultimately moves employers overseas so that we don't have those jobs here in America.
You had sent that article to me a couple of days back from Charlie Reese, and it was amazing to go through it. And he's reading things like the CDL license tax, cigarette tax, corporate income tax, dog license, excise tax, federal income tax, unemployment, fishing tax, food tax. And it just goes through this long list. And until you see it written in front of you, you have no idea there's so much that hits you every day.
Yeah. And so what ultimately happens is you can't afford to spend additional money. You can't have jobs because the regulations are too expensive and too burdensome. So we need to have a complete overhaul in Washington, and I think you're going to have another sea change come in Washington, D.C. for that to ultimately happen. Give us a call at 1-800-671-1776. You can text Liberty Counsel by texting 20222. That's 20222, and in the subject line put down LC. 20222, in the subject line put down LC, and that will send us a tax-deductible $10 contribution to help support this ministry. You can also go to Liberty Counsel's Facebook, facebook.com/Liberty Counsel, COUNSEL, facebook.com/Liberty Counsel. And also check out our YouTube page as well, because we broadcast this program on YouTube every day, plus other information that you can share with your family and friends. Go to Liberty Counsel's website, lc.org, and ask for the sticker that says, Hold Their Feet to the Fire. It's the Hold Their Feet to the Fire sticker, and we'll send it to you right away.
You have been listening to Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel. Our hope is to encourage and inspire you to stand up for your faith, family, and freedoms. We can accomplish a lot when we work together. Get informed and get involved today. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, The Liberator. We will send it out to you free of charge. Stay informed with our Liberty Alert email update. Just click on the website at www.lc.org or call us at 1-800-671-1776. Tune in next time to learn more about your rights right here on Faith and Freedom.